that's a good question. It's a random Bill says, do you think if Mario came out today, it would do as good as it did when it first came out? Um, I mean, that's kind of such a hard. I think it's a really hard question to answer to an extent. I think if Nintendo had never made Mario and they made Mario now, I feel like Mario Odyssey probably would have been the very first Mario game. I don't know how the evolution of Mario would get there without Super Mario Brothers ever existing in the past, because Super Mario Brothers, just from little bits and pieces I've seen about it, it created not just like really smooth platforming and a continuous like game to play like that. Like the I think it's the parallax scrolling in it was like kind of like crazy for the time because it wasn't like each individual screen, like it was one long screen, and it was like crazy. People hadn't really seen anything like that. So like it really kind of created the platforming genre. So
That's what I was gonna say.
with no Super Mario game ever existing until now, would there have been platforming games? I'm sure, but it's hard to say exactly. I mean, that's a very good question, and honestly, I really don't know. I genuinely think if Nintendo had made no Mario games and just now made the game, I genuinely still think they probably would have released Mario Odyssey. I think that would have been their first game. But I would love to hear. Bino's been very quiet because we've been having old man hour over here. So Bino, I would love just any input you have on that question.
I okay, granted I haven't played a Mario game for a very long time, but I would be inclined to say probably not with the way that games are now with things like, Red Dead Redemption 2 and all of these massive big games where you can just do everything. I don't know that without the past success that Mario has had, I don't know if it would be as successful. I think it would still be popular, but I think a lot of the charm with Mario games is Mario, like this character that we've all come to know and love through decades of Nintendo games. And I think without that, while it might still be good, like good just as a game, I don't know if it would be as popular or successful. Granted, today's gaming landscape, as it were.
Well, with mine, I honestly, if there was no Mario, I don't think gaming today as we know it wouldn't be as it is. We wouldn't have had like Sonic. We wouldn't have like Crash or the next type of platforming type, because if that's what really hit off the platforming type game is Mario. How great it was, and it still is great. And so, and especially with today's world, platforming really isn't the top type of game. So I don't think Mario would do as good as it if it wasn't made back then.
I mean,
Um,
if it was if literally if I'm trying to think of an interesting way to put it. If Nintendo had never made Super Mario Brothers and they released today um, Super Mario Brothers in its form, whether it's just a straight 2D platformer, if they did it in the indie style that is kind of like I kind of think like the 8-bit 16-bit indie style has kind of died down a little bit. um, but I think if they approached it in that manner, I think that game could be very good. If they release it just if, and I'm putting all sorts of like, I'm pretty sure Bill said if they release it as it was then. If they release that just straight now, even if it was with updated graphics and stuff, I don't think that game would necessarily be good. If that was the first Super Mario game ever, I don't even think like making it with like the biggest, best graphics ever in the world are really going to make that game good now. However, if they made that game, if it was the first time they're ever making a Super Mario game, and they did it as they have done with future games, if they had in that game, really super clever platforming puzzles, wall jumps, dives, things of that nature that slowly were introduced over time, then yes, I think that game could be good because for them to make that game now, they don't have the limitations that they had when they made that game then. So they could make a very different game of that now than they did then. But it's a very difficult thing.
Well, like Nightwolf just said, though, Mario saved the console gaming world and technically arcades. Like there was the gaming crash of '85. Where video games just weren't doing good, and without like the NES and Mario, that's what kind of saved consoles in general. Would we even have like gaming as we know? Like, I don't know, because I don't think things would have hit off as it would have without it.
It is a very weird. It's a very weird. It's nothing I've ever thought about. God, this would actually make, because I literally see Bill's question of, is the floor open to continue with questions? I have some that might take a while to answer. I don't want to ask things that you could discuss on other podcasts. And now that we're having this Mario discussion, I genuinely think if we put a little research into it, even if it was just a small segment, I think it would be a very interesting episode to be like, what would video games be without Mario? If Mario never went past his role in Donkey Kong and his role in the Mario Brothers game. Not Super Mario Brothers, but the Mario Brothers game where, like, you bonk the turtles from underneath. Like, if that was the end of Mario, if nobody at Nintendo was like, let's continue forward with this as our mascot character, like, it would be very interesting to see. Because I feel like arcades may have been a bit more prevalent a bit longer. Because I think home consoles were going to happen because people wanted to play video games. But I'm not going to take further content from this possible idea. But it's definitely that is such a fascinating topic, and I never really put any thought into it.
Such an interesting hypothetical about how this one little Japanese-Italian plumber shaped the entire landscape of what we know and love. Would we be here doing this right now? This Three Beans in a Pod, if it wasn't for Mario?
Yeah, it's crazy.
I'm gonna go with no. I'm gonna give it to Mario. I don't think it would have been the same way as it was or it is. And with Bill, I think we might as well just have Q&A first. So I think you guys can ask away. Then we can do the streaming journey at the end. I think that since we're going this way anyway.
Everybody get on
if
Twitter.
You guys are okay with that?
And use hashtag Thank You Mario.
Italian plumber from Japan saves gaming.
It's a me, a racist stereotype.
But then without Mario, you got to wonder what would have, because I don't think platforming would have took off as it did. What would have filled the gap?
I mean, I want to sit here and say that I feel like we would have got Sonic even without Mario. I don't know if we would have got Sonic in the same respect we got, though. So I don't know if Sonic even necessarily would have been the launching point, because the reason even the Genesis and Sonic was a whole thing is because, like, Sega does what Nintendo don't, so like that Genesis came out and did the things that Nintendo couldn't do, like blast processing, like all these amazing things, and that absolutely atrocious keyboard. But it was just, I don't know. I mean, platforming would have existed. Like D. Valros says, Turrican and Commander Keen existed, so platforming would have come about. I just don't know.
I don't really think of Turrican as a platformer, though. It's more of a shoot 'em up. Like Super Turrican and all those. It's like a Contra.
it's still, I mean, like those types of like
Controversial opinion.
those types of like run and guns are kind of like platformers too. Like to an extent, I think Contra is a platformer, even though it is a run and
Really?
gun. Yes, you jump from platform to platform. There's literally a stage where you have to jump up
Yeah,
from platform to platform. I mean,
yeah.
it's just you don't jump
When I
on things' heads.
like Val said, I kind of think of like Pitfall. Yeah, that did come first. I consider that like a platformer. So, but I don't know.
But no, if we're just constantly falling back on that, if there's no Mario, if there's no Mario, then I I don't think there would be Nintendo, because Nintendo was like making like the Game and Watch stuff, and they were a card game company, and they had like Donkey
There are
Kong.
hotel chains.
Yeah, it's like if they didn't have Mario as that big leaping point, because even if you say they released the Nintendo with, let's say they released the Nintendo with the complete opposite, and we got the dual cart was Duck Hunt
Duck Hunt.
and what the hell was that one game with the pad that you jumped on? It was like there was one that was a triple cart that was like Mario, Duck Hunt, and and I can't remember the name of the game, but it was one of the stupid like track and field or something like that, and you had the little power pad. It
Yeah.
was track and field. Okay, thank you, Valroth. You ran on the pad. If that had been the launch, I think Nintendo would have been dead in the water. Just immediately, just dead in the water,
Wow.
because
So does
they have a
please.
game that is a light gun game and either using an accessory to properly play the game, or a controller where you're going to break your fingers playing the game, and neither of those games are going to have any depth. And unless they came up with something like really quick after that, because if they're releasing that, like, no, they're not going to get a lot of like, I don't think a lot of people are going to be like third party jump on at that point, because it's like, oh, these are the games. One gun game and a weird pad accessory game, like, maybe the Master System. We'll stay with the Master System, and who knows? Maybe instead of Final Fantasy games, we would have Fantasy Star
Oh God, I
24 at
wish.
this point. Something of that nature. But I don't know. It's a very weird area. So it's like I really don't know what the video game world would be like without Mario, because I feel like without Mario there probably wouldn't have been much of a future for Nintendo. And I know that's probably like a little too bold of a statement, because they do have so many great IPs, but like Valra said, Zelda probably would have been the killer. And it's like, but would
But
they
would
have,
Zelda have came with Mario without Mario? You mean?
yeah, it's like, would they have had the ability to be like, okay, well, we did this really safe game, now we're going to make Zelda? And it's like, would they have had the money to do that? Would they have had the money to make a Zelda game? So it's like, it's crazy. It's really, really crazy.
I was
When you
thinking the
think
same
about
with
it,
Pokemon. If you
yeah.
didn't have Mario, would we have even had Pokemon? Could Pokemon have been the thing to carry Nintendo to success, or would Pokemon have not even existed if it wasn't for Mario bringing that revenue into Nintendo, so they could then go and make something like Pokemon?
Well, and
Well, I'm curious if Nintendo would have done stuff as well, just like Taco said, because before Mario, it was a lot of arcadey type games. All the black box games were arcade types. Mario was the one that really had different stages and different worlds and continuing on. So I honestly don't think that Nintendo would have had the budget or possibly creativity to branch out like they did with Mario into like a Zelda or Metroid.
we'll see, and that's why,
So,
and like Bino was just saying about Pokemon, and correct me if I'm wrong. Um, Pokemon was a like made by Game Freak and
hmm
then licensed to Nintendo.
hmm
Right.
So I mean, in theory, Pokemon, unless Game Freak is like in a studio within Nintendo, which it could be, and I'm just talking out my butthole here, but I think Pokemon would have existed, but maybe not Nintendo. Maybe we're doing a little too a hot take on Nintendo. I don't know, but I mean, it's like to say that everything Nintendo hinged on Mario is a little intense, because I am seeing a lot of things in chat about arcade games and things of that nature. But I mean, would they have almost turned into kind of like Sega did? Would they have just been a publisher at that point, as opposed to a publisher and a hardware developer? Like, would we see hundreds of Nintendo arcade games?
Ooh, now,
but
oh boy, now I have a good topic for next time. Oh, I have. What if Nintendo and Sega did the opposite, where Sega kept going and Nintendo ran out and just became developers? That would be a fun topic.
Oh man, back to back. Do I want to become famouses in chat? Baby, the bots are hot today.
Yeah, I think we should save this this Mario debate. It seems like we have quite a bit to talk about.
I think,
and if we do our research, I think it could be good.
It's one of those things where it's like, I don't know. I feel like if we got a super deep dive into it to actually look at like the full economics and everything of it, I think it could make almost a whole podcast. But depending on how much we actually scrap together, and of course it's all going to be hypothetical, it's all going to be like our opinions based on if Mario didn't exist. If nothing else, it will definitely be a very interesting segment. So I think this is definitely a good launching point for maybe not necessarily the next episode, but definitely somebody DM me hashtag no Mario, no Nintendo.
Get that trending on Twitter and see what happens.
Hell yeah.